You probably don't know this, but if you take one of the best known Hermetic laws, the concept of existential kink, the idea of getting triggered and understanding the world around us and how we basically project into our reality, crossing the line between non-duality and duality in our experience, you basically can understand how we get triggered, how to not get triggered, and what to do if you actually want to enjoy the entire experience of getting triggered. So I'm going to walk you through some of the different concepts today so that you can see how this may be unfolding in your life and make some different choices if you'd like to have a different experience. So let's start with one of the best known Hermetic laws. This is as within, so without, as above, so below. So basically, this is expressing that we are the bridge between the dualistic and the non-dualistic experience. You can think of the non-dualistic experience as anything happening in the spiritual. When I say non-dualistic, what I mean is when it's spiritual, there isn't this comparison of bad or good, better or worse, higher or lower, because it simply is. It is a state of being. And as spiritual beings, having a physical experience, having an incarnated experience, we get to know what it's like to be in this spiritual state of meditation or in a heightened state of spiritual experience like worship or sometimes using different plant medicines. We get to understand what it is like when it's not about bad and good, young and old, and all of these things that are known as the binary or the dualistic experience. So when we're experiencing the 3D, what's happening is we're beginning to put everything into created matter and experience it in time. So when you understand the Hermetic law of as above, so below, as within, so without, what we are identifying here is that we are the bridge because we get to experience both states of being, and because of our mind and our consciousness, we have the opportunity to bridge those two and sometimes go back and forth between them, which can be a lot of fun. But if you don't realize that in some moments you are simply existing and in other moments you are judging and analyzing, sometimes those two can get a little bit confused. So let's shift over a little bit and talk about the book Existential Kink. It is a really profound work by Dr. Carolyn Elliot, now Carolyn Lovewell, on the concept that was established in Carl Jung's quote that says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to rule your life and you will call it fate." Basically expressing that everything in the world around us is some part of us that we have yet to reconcile, accept, or fold into our state of being. So if we know that everything we are experiencing is somehow a part of our internal dynamic because of the law in the Hermetic laws, and then we also understand that our unconscious is of something that we have not made conscious and folded into what we know about ourselves, it is ruling our life and we call it fate. Basically thinking of the 95% of our experience as the subconscious, which is programmed by our way of being in the world, and it also gets programmed genetically by things that get handed down. So until we bring those parts of ourselves up to the forefront, we don't understand how much they govern our day-to-day experiences. This has also been identified in some of Joe Dispenza's work, where he cites the statistic that you have 70,000 thoughts per day, and over 90% of those thoughts every single day are repeat thoughts of the day before. So understanding that our experience is just kind of rebooted and doing again. So let's talk about this in the concept of projection. So every single moment we are experiencing the world around us. However, there are so many things to experience. Let's say we take 10 people and they all look at a piece of art, or maybe they just look at a building. One person might notice the shutters and how aligned they are. Another person might notice the colors. Another person might notice the decay. This has been shared in the analogy of the elephant when they had several blind men walk up to an elephant and say, "Wow, this thing is strong like a tree." And another says, "It feels like a wall," right? Depending on your perspective, you are going to experience reality differently. In our day and age, through our five senses and additionally through all of the spiritual senses that we are attuning, we are receiving a tremendous number of inbound signals. And of course, we can't really process all of those in our conscious mind. I can't look at 500 things at once. I only have two eyes and they like to focus on one thing at a time. So when you understand that all of these signals are coming in, but your brain is constantly sifting through them and filtering them and determining which ones are important, and it determines which ones are important based on your internal reality. So you filter out everything and you only notice one thing. So this projection happens when you are in a conversation with someone and they are saying lots and lots and lots of words, but you may not catch on to certain words. You'll only catch on to the ones that are similar to an experience you are having on the inside. So once you understand these 4 principles, we can now put together the idea of getting triggered. So getting triggered, to use it very lightly, it is a therapeutic term. It is something known in the psychology world, but for our purposes today, it is being activated. So if you assume that you are kind of in a state of just kind of humming along and then somebody says something and you have a heightened level of sensation, not bad or good, just all of a sudden noticing that your emotions are more alive. You might begin to cry, you might become angry, you might feel your blood pressure rising. All of these things are just a sign that you have been triggered. Now, if you identify what they say, a lot of times this happens in relational conflicts when you realize that you are starting to get irritated with someone and you're thinking they mean something, but do they actually mean that? Well, a lot of times you've filtered through everything that is being said and you have collected the things that you are predisposed to notice based on what is already existing within you. So if your partner or your friend says something and all of a sudden you say, I really feel like you're judging me, at the end of the day, you notice that because that is what you do internally. The only reason you notice something in your world is because you are creating your awareness of the world based on what is happening internally. So you notice it inside of you. You notice yourself judging yourself, trying to figure out if this is going wrong. You notice yourself judging other people. This is why we project our reality, why everything we experience is filtered out based on our internal value system and what we've learned to tune into, what we have learned to assess as threats. I want to be very clear. This does not mean that what you are perceiving as a threat is a threat. It does not mean that what you are perceiving as someone giving you a slight or somebody giving you a slap in the face, unless it's actually a slap in the face, is that. It's basically your subconscious trying to move into your conscious space and identify what it's been wrestling with in what you can recognize in the world around you. And sometimes our internal wars don't get fully expressed until something happens in the world around us that we can tie to that internal experience. So sometimes you may overreact and have a really significant emotional reaction to something happening outside that doesn't really match the level or the tenor of the conversation going on. So understanding that at the end of the day, we are constantly moving through worlds, identifying the things that recognize. We are noting things and catching the eye of things that are a similar experience to what we are experiencing on the inside of our heart, mind, and body. And then we begin to get closer to that thing because we are focusing, and where we focus, energy flows and follows. All of a sudden, our entire experience is going to be a mirror of what is happening on the inside, which is why it's so important to do the internal work, because otherwise we're just going to continue to trigger ourselves on the outside until we reconcile what's happening on the inside. So when someone triggers you, or when you trigger someone and they say, man, I feel really, let's just go with judged by you, there is a very high chance that they are judging themselves. And this is the first time they're seeing the experience or feeling that in the 3-dimensional world. And so they're calling it up for an opportunity to discuss it. When you understand that most of the time people react to what you do based on what they are seeing, which is already calibrated based on their subconscious mind, you begin to be less reactive when you are accused of things, whether it's comments on the internet or a partner who's accusing you of something. And this is not to say that we get a carte blanche, everyone's projections of me are simply their own issues, but it does give us the opportunity to slow things down a bit and say, wow, is this a common and recurring theme? Or is this a one-off experience? And if it's a one-off experience, there is a chance that we've just hit a nerve inside of the other person. It has nothing to do necessarily that I have done something wrong, unless I know that I'm out of alignment or I'm out of integrity with myself, or I've acted in a way that is counter to the way I want to be. In that case, it is my responsibility to apologize. But if I haven't acted counter to who I want to be and who I'm showing up in as the world, then it could just be this person's projection. And if it is this person's projection, understanding and approaching it with a lot of kindness that this war has probably been going on inside them for quite some time. And now it's coming to the forefront. So making a space safe enough for them to express what's really going on and continuing to love them in new and better ways. So this kind of takes us back to the existential kink variety, which is that we will continue to manifest a world that reconciles with what we are experiencing inside. So if inside we feel insignificant and worthless, a lot of times we will align our external reality to match that because it's the only thing that feels like home. I know for me, when I was growing up, there was a lot of chaos all around. And so I have always gravitated towards situations with a high level of chaos because that is where I feel most at home. It feels natural to me because it feels like what's going on the inside. But if I continue to complain about it and I say, oh my God, why is everything always so chaotic? I'm missing the opportunity to enjoy being able to manifest and feel and experience in the third dimension everything that is going on inside of me. So if you are constantly at odds with the world around you, if you feel that over and over and over again you feel judged, maybe there's a part of you that enjoys the sensation of being judged. And if you can actually recognize and reconcile that feeling inside and say, look at me really enjoying this feeling of being judged, you are in a much better position to be able to shift that reality in the future by first closing that loop on the inside. And then you will begin to see, as you find inner peace and you stop judging yourself and you stop judging others, the world around you becomes much less judgmental because we are in control of our reality.